Acing every kind of software engineering interviews, and today we're going to cover the technical phone screen. The technical phone screen is going to be your first encounter with an engineer for the company. Congratulations, the company's taken an interest in you. The technical phone screen lasts between 45 minutes to an hour, and you're going to be expected to solve 1 to 2 questions live with the interviewer. Now, it goes without saying that if you made it this far, before you take the interview, you should have done 3 things. Number 1, brushed up on your data structures and algorithms, because boy are those going to come in handy when you're solving these coding problems. Number 2, you should have practiced enough lead code so that when you're given a problem, you can make a respectable effort to be able to solve it. And number 3, and this is one a lot of candidates skip out on, make sure you've done at least 1 or 2 mock interviews before you take the actual interview. So the first and last 5 minutes or so for these interviews are typically dedicated to pleasantries. You're making a bit of small talk, you're talking about yourself. The interviewer may ask you about a past project that you've worked on. And remember, it is not necessary for you to go into too much detail about any project that the interviewer has asked you about, because anytime you spend talking about that project is time you're taking away from time that would have been assigned to you to be solving the coding problem. For technical coding interviews, you're going to be using a live collaboration tool such as CoderPad, and this CoderPad may or may not have code execution capabilities. The interviewer is going to give you a description of the problem, and then they will follow up by pasting that problem into the collaboration environment such as CoderPad. Now, before you start trying to solve the problem, it is imperative that you understand the question, and a good way to do this is by repeating the question or your understanding of the question back to the interviewer and getting their buy-in. Once you've understood the question, you want to spend a little bit of time, maybe about 2 to 5 minutes, just brainstorming a solution, thinking your thoughts out loud, and also getting buy-in from the interviewer with whatever approach you've come up with. And then once you've devised a good approach that your interviewer thinks is a good approach, then you can start coding the solution out. Believe it or not, once you have a good approach in mind, it doesn't take you all that much to be implementing the code. Now, there's one caveat here. If the problem is so complex that it isn't immediately obvious to you what the complete solution is going to be like, it may be fine for you to start with what you can start with. And then as you get deeper into the problem, talk to the interviewer a bit more and build up the solution incrementally. Which brings me to my next point. Make sure you don't zipper up and stop talking when you start writing out code. You should always be communicating your thought process, because you're going to be judged on how you approach a problem rather than what solution you present for that problem. And remember, if you get stuck for a bit, it's totally fine. You could tell the interviewer something like, hey, let me think about that for a few seconds, and then start communicating your thought process, thinking aloud, because the interviewer will, in a lot of situations, give you helpful hints. And if you're able to pick up on that hint and run with it, that's a plus. When you've completed your implementation for the solution, you should do 3 things. Number 1, you should do a really quick scan of your code to make sure you don't have any obvious bugs or typos. Number 2, you should do a dry run with the test case for your code. A dry run involves you taking a sample input and putting that sample input through every line of your code so that you get the expected output at the end. And number 3, lastly, you should be volunteering what the space and time complexity of your solution is. Now, obviously, the situation that I described is a happy path. In a lot of circumstances, you may not have enough time to go over all those 3 steps, let alone finish your implementation of the solution. And that's totally fine, because the more important thing that you're going to be judged on a technical phone screen is how you approach problems, and not your ability to present a solution to a given problem. If this was helpful, show your support by dropping a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.